What's up, folks? Justin Garcia, aka Master Chim here, with another verse from the Hávamál. For those of you who this is your first video of me explaining a verse from the Hávamál, just so you know, I am using the Wanderer's Hávamál, and this is by Jackson Crawford. He is a Norse language specialist and a very, very impressive academic in the body of work that he's amassed in this genre and topic specifically. So all that being said, today I'm going to talk about verse 10 from the Hávamál. And I read from the Wanderer's Hávamál. A traveler cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom. It will prove better than money in an unfamiliar place. Wisdom is the comfort of the poor. So, a couple of things to break down here. First off, I think it's I was going to say wise, but you know what? It's appropriate. It's wise, maybe appropriate, to define the term wisdom before we begin to use it in the explanation of what this verse actually means, or my interpretation of it at least. So wisdom, people define different ways. And one of the things about language is, ironically, through Jackson Crawford, I got to experience this firsthand in seeing the different interpretations of how translations were made of these Old Norse texts, or just old texts in general. You get to see different people translate things different ways. And what winds up happening is not only some of the meaning gets lost, but it's actually confusing, in some cases contradictory. So starting off with an understanding of how I'm using terms, I think is the most thorough way of explaining and sharing what exactly my take on this verse actually is. So wisdom, as I define it, is not only the accumulation of knowledge in general. Oftentimes, wisdom is attributed to experience, which is a accumulation of knowledge along a timeline. One of the things that separates a lot of times between just the general accumulation of knowledge and the accumulation of knowledge through a timeline is through the timeline we are actually exposed to the most realistic truth that is available whenever we take information or we look to describe. And you could think of this as an example. Imagine you went on a trip and you saw a museum and somebody had asked you, well, what was great about the museum? And you said there was this one piece, this painting that I really enjoyed, and they asked you to describe it. There is no level of description that you can convey to that other person that would substitute for them standing in front of that picture and taking it all in themselves. And in language, we have to understand that oftentimes there's a reduction in how we transfer this information. And looking to get back closer and closer to source material is always going to give us the best possible take on what exactly was trying to be communicated from the beginning. Oftentimes, we still reduce information to what is being said, even if we understand exactly what these terms mean. And we bypass who was doing the saying, right? Who said it? Not only what they said, but how did they say it? Why did they say it? Is there any significance to the context added by including who they were when they said this thing? So all that being said, let's talk about wisdom. So I say wisdom is certainly the accumulation of knowledge, but I would say more specifically, it's being able to understand the difference in our life, in our world, throughout our time, our timeline, throughout our years, our accumulating of experience. It's understanding the distinction between those things we can control, those things we can't, and how that sort of cause-effect type relationship exists through other stimulus, right? Or through other stimuli throughout our life, throughout the world, throughout reality. Wisdom is not just a collection of information. If that were the case, people would be able to get all the encyclopedias, the dictionaries. They would be able to learn from the smartest people, and they would be as wise as one could be. Take the wisest person on earth, Have that person teach you everything he knows. Why would you not be just as wise as him? We all understand that to be the case, right? We understand that the wisdom wouldn't be replicated that easily. So wisdom has to be something else. And a lot of times it's an understanding of how things work that transcends our ability to describe it, right? So with that definition of wisdom being said, let's turn back to the verse. This is number 10. A traveler cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom. So understand that the author in this, poem is attributed to Odin, the god himself. So from that perspective, from that voice, he is saying that there are going to be burdens on the road traveling. He acknowledges that. That is just the reality of being a traveler. What you carry with you is burdensome. And not much of a leap to understand and concede that idea. But he says, you cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom. Using my definition of wisdom, what he's saying here is you cannot bring a better burden on the road in your travels than an understanding of what you can control, what you cannot control, and how that cause and effect relationship exists beyond your immediate circumstances. Understanding how the world works is a great ability, a great attribute, a great benefit, when traveling abroad as a traveler. A traveler cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom. Anything that you are bringing, the inference here is, if you are bringing something in your travels, it should be good. Because he's saying that there's nothing better than this. He is implying that what you're carrying with you should be what you need anyway. I define good as those things and attributes and influences that contribute to a more successful pursuit of mission, a more successful compliance to identity, the things that allow you to be a better version of yourself while pursuing the things that you as yourself has committed to pursue. Those things would be considered good. Well, he's saying there's nothing better than plenty of wisdom. He doesn't just say wisdom, he says plenty of wisdom, implying some sort of excess. There's something to be said for all the other things that we see in the Hávamál, pertaining to wisdom and the accumulation of knowledge and how we should not be so solitary and isolationist, and how we go about our lives, right? The next two lines, it will prove better than money in an unfamiliar place. So let's first, as a traveler, let's put ourselves in that position and imagine we're in an unfamiliar place. We don't understand who the people are. We don't know these people. We've never been here before. We don't know the goings on of these immediate, new, unfamiliar circumstances. I think many people would say, well, you know what? If I'm stuck somewhere, where I don't know anybody and I don't know what's going on, I wish I had some money. Well, what is being implied here is he is saying it is better to understand the way the world works. It's better to understand what you can control, what is in your power, what is not. And I will tell you, I have traveled somewhat, been around the block. I've been to Brazil, I've been to Europe, I've been throughout, America. I've been in great neighborhoods, I've been in terrible neighborhoods. I've had guns pulled on me. I've had all sorts of things happen during my regular, life that a lot of people, I would argue, the average person, especially not the average, American, has ever encountered. And I could tell you firsthand that I understand this to be true. I understand that if I'm in, let's say, an unfamiliar place, an unfamiliar neighborhood, one of the things that I prize most is my ability to understand people, to understand the way the dynamic between people can change in a heartbeat. And that is wisdom. That is based on my experience and understanding how what has worked over the years, what hasn't, seeing that successful and unsuccessful formulas sort of shaped and molded by other people and their experiences that I was exposed to. right? So being in this new place, wisdom is certainly the thing that we want to have. And finally, and I think this is a great finish to this verse, he says, wisdom is the comfort of the poor. Well, one of the things, if you've been following my content, that I've said time and time again is stop thinking money is the answer to everything. Money should never be the mission. Doesn't mean you should be opposed to accumulating money. I charge for my coaching. I charge for a lot of the things that I do, to make a living. But money should never be the mission. And I say that oftentimes because the people who tend to put money as the mission have associated some sort of happiness, some light at the end of the tunnel that they think exists at some level of income. One of the phrases that I say all the time is, rich people kill themselves too. So there's something to be said for understanding there is happiness, fulfillment. There's an understanding of reality that exists even without money. He says wisdom is the comfort of the poor. Well, when you say somebody's poor, the implication is, or the connotation that goes along with that is they are unhappy. And he says wisdom is the comfort of these supposed to be unhappy individuals. But he says the comfort comes from wisdom itself. The comfort comes from understanding, even if you are without, that there are still things in your control. There are still things that are out of your control. And the fact that you do not have money, you have no wealth, does not remove your power, right? It doesn't remove your power over those things that you still maintain power over, right? So that was verse 10 of the Hávamál. If you're interested in getting this book, and to me, it's my absolute favorite Hávamál translation so far, and I own a few. The Wanderer's Hávamál, if you're interested in getting it, there'll be a link in the description, or you could just go to Amazon. I'm going to have a link there to help support what it is that I'm doing. But listen, just get yourself the information. Power is power, and I want the people to surround me to be as powerful as possible. I appreciate you guys spending the time, because time is the one thing that has no price. So I appreciate the investment. I'll talk to you guys soon. And as always, brothers, pressure to power.